Hello, and welcome to the Amongst Romans podcast, your window to everything Italy from an outsider's perspective. Join us each week as we navigate the Italian way of life and all the adventures that come along with it. So now that it's October here in Italy, I thought it might be a good time to talk about visiting Italy in October. I think a lot of people think of Italy as a summer destination, and they don't really consider it as a place where you can come in the fall. We can talk about Italy in October and give some tips for people who want to come during this time.
Yeah, I think fall's a great time to visit. There's so much going on still. The majority of the summer festivals have wound down, but now in the fall, they always have the various sagras or food-themed festivals. So yeah, I think it's a great time to visit.
Now, we should probably talk about the weather first, because I think that's one of the questions people ask, what's the weather going to be like? Again, I think it really depends where you're coming from. Fall is usually mild comparing to other places. I think this year, I was reading somewhere that most of Europe had a bit of an unusual summer, meaning that it was very, very hot. And I think September, sort of end of September, was one of the coldest in a while. So again, what you might experience one year might not be the same, but I think on average, you could say that October is sort of still like the month that binds the end of summer with like the beginning of not winter, but really like later fall. And I think it gives you a bit of a relief from the summer heat, but also gives you a bit of an insight of what Italy is like when kids go back to school, people get back from their vacation, and there aren't as many tourists. There are always going to be tourists, but I think there are fewer of them, and you can get a bit of a different vibe of what Italian cities look like.
The weather varies between the north and the southern regions of Italy. Up north, obviously, you will get the lower temperatures around 20 degrees, which is still very comfortable. But further down south, you'll get the warmer temperatures. And you'll actually even find at times that many people actually go to the beach for a week or two because the weather's actually that warm. So it varies between the north and the south regions.
I guess it depends just what kind of experience you want to have. If you want changing leaves, the cooler evenings, sort of more crisp mornings, I think the north is probably the way you want to go, sort of north to central Italy. The further down you go, the warmer it's going to get. So where we are, the nights here are getting pretty cool. Like in the night is between maybe 13 to 15. But during the day, we still hit low to mid 20s. We are about an hour from Naples. We are inland. And usually we are about 5 degrees cooler than it is in Naples. So we went to Naples last weekend and it was still pretty warm. I think it was like mid-20s. It was sunny and it felt comfortable.
Yeah, there is that variance between the big cities and smaller towns. And then also there's the higher areas. Like we're in a higher, more mountainous area. So you'll find the temperatures will be slightly lower, so there's a few degrees difference, but yeah, there is definitely a noticeable difference when you go to the major cities.
And I think the furthest south you go, like Sicily, for example, I think it's a great time to go right now because Sicily in summer can get, I think, almost too hot. Like unless you're on the beach, it's really just ridiculously hot there. I think September, October are a good time to visit because you don't get that stifling heat, but it's also quite nice. It's a bit warmer than it is here. The evenings can be a bit cooler overnight, but it's not necessarily as warm as it is in the summertime, but it's definitely a pleasant time to explore Italy. One of the things you have to keep in mind, though, is that it's a bit more of a rainy season. Some days it might rain for a little bit. Some days it might rain for the whole day. Definitely keep that in mind and be prepared for rain. Bring an umbrella or some sort of water-resistant clothing, and I think you'll be fine.
Fall marks some of my favorite events that happen in these areas that we live here, and it's always food themed, which is my favorite subject. There's so many what they refer to as sagras, and they always concentrate on a certain food item. Chestnuts are very popular here. Porcini mushrooms, or just mushrooms in general, are very popular in the area, and they cultivate quite a bit of it in this area for Italy and for export. So there is definitely a lot of festivals that we can attend. And we found ourselves actually being huge fans of visiting adjacent towns that have these festivals going on.
I remember my first chestnut festival and I didn't really know what to expect. So it's really kind of fun to see because like I've never had chestnuts until I met you. Chestnuts are sort of, I think, an acquired taste. Either you like them or you don't. But I think if you go to a chestnut festival, they roast them properly. You'll have them roasting in different either smaller barrels or bigger ones, and like they just keep turning it. Last week we went to one. They were almost on like a grill hovering over the fire, so there was a bit of a different way. But essentially, it's different food. So in this case, it's chestnuts. So you can buy roasted chestnuts. You can get chestnut-related items. So there were some pastries. They had, I think I got fried mushrooms. There's sandwiches. Again, depends on what town it is and how big it is. We went to different ones over the years in the 3 or 4 different towns.
Yeah, we've been to actually quite a few of them. There is one area specifically. It's actually a town called Montella, which is very well known for the chestnut production. And we actually, last year we visited one of the production plants where you can actually purchase different types of chestnuts, and you can purchase them by size and grade. The lower quality ones are still good, but then you can get these super high-end large chestnuts the size of a baby fist. So it's pretty cool to see. But yeah, it's a huge production they've got going on, and a lot of it gets exported outside of the country.
So for chestnuts, I think Montella is one of my favorite festivals. I went last year. It was really pissing rain. We weren't able to enjoy the festival as much, but that festival, and I'm not sure it's because the chestnut area is like right there, you could actually buy a bag of chestnuts. Whereas the ones like we went last weekend, I didn't see them selling bags of chestnuts. You can buy it like weighted. So we got like a kilo or something like that of the chestnuts. But at the other one in Montella, they have these big sacks. And I remember, I think I got, the bag was like, 5 kilos? And it was like €3 or something, 3 or 5 euros, ridiculous price. And they were really good.
I think we're just early in the season. That's probably why they don't have them by the sack or by large packages. So, and then also the fact that Montella is very well known for it. So I think you'll see a lot more people selling chestnuts at the festivals there.
So there's also truffle festivals. Now, I guess we talked about chestnuts because chestnuts are really big in this region in Campania, but they're also pretty big in Tuscany and Piedmont. Like not all the regions have the same specialties. So when we talk about truffles, which is another local seasonal type of, food that they have a festival around, we have some truffles here, but I don't think we have any truffle festivals here.
Yeah, they're not as popular, even though the area does produce black truffles. You can actually purchase them at a lot of the fruit stands. They have them in a fridge in the back. They're super inexpensive here compared to outside of Italy. It's a very well-known fact that the black truffle can be purchased in this area, but it's not as well-known and not as popular as the white truffle.
If you are into truffles and you want to attend a festival, we recommend you go to the Alba White Truffle Festival, an event taking place in Piedmont. That one starts mid-October. I think it's October 12th and goes all the way to beginning of December. It's not just limited to like a weekend, which it's easier if you're planning on coming during that time period. I think that's probably one of the biggest ones for truffles. Whereas in our area, the truffles will be mixed in with a mushroom festival or even a chestnut festival. I don't think we've seen any around in our area, just like standalone truffles.
Another popular festival are the wine festivals. Especially in this area, there's a very popular grape that is produced for the Aglianico wine, but there is the festivals that are in Tuscany, Umbria, and then Vendemmia that are very popular.
If you're into wine, I think this is a great time. Like you mentioned, Tuscany and Umbria are obviously known for that, but even in Campania, it's a very big wine region. Abruzzo is another one. There's Puglia. I think pretty much every region in Italy makes wine. So no matter where you go, there should probably be a winery or someplace that you can go to. And I think that's a really good experience to come and do in October if you're thinking of coming to Italy at that time.
October is also the time that they harvest olives for olive oil. Popular regions are Puglia, Tuscany, and Umbria that produce a large amount of Italian olive oil.
That's one of the things I haven't done yet, and I really wanted to, is do the harvesting thing. So sometimes when you're driving by, you see the nets set up and, at some point they're going to be collecting the olives. I think in some places you can actually go and participate in that. So that's one of the things that I want to do maybe next year. We can find somewhere where we can actually go and see what that looks like, because I think it looks quite fun. And the production of olive is very interesting. So again, if you're into food and tours, you can do wine tasting, and you can combine it with like olive tasting. And you probably find olive oil everywhere at the markets as well. And if you are in Puglia especially, or any region that is into olive production, you find some olive oil to bring back home with you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the markets would also have the olive oil for sale. A lot of people sell their own olive oil that they produce from their own local farms. One thing I don't recommend is trying a unripened olive that falls off the tree. It's quite gross. So I experienced that, and it wasn't a good idea.
What made you decide to try it?
I don't know why. I just wanted to give it a go.
Yeah, I don't know why it would. Anyway, I read about it that they don't really taste good, but I guess I didn't really think of it till you said you tried it and it was disgusting.
Yeah.
So I think we talked about food, and that's a really big thing here, but we have to keep in mind there's also other festivals. So if you're not really into specific food festivals, there are some other ones you can explore. Now, October, it's a start of many of them. Different regions will have their regional festivals, and, different towns will celebrate different saints or different events. One of the biggest ones that if you are coming to Italy for a spiritual experience is going to Assisi, which is the home of St. Francis. So it's an annual celebration held on October 4th, and he is the patron saint of Italy, as well as animals and their environment. During that event, there's processions, masses, and blessings. I think next year, if you're coming to Italy for the Jubilee, this probably would be one of the destinations outside of Rome that a lot of pilgrims would be visiting. So keep that in mind if you're thinking of coming next year to Italy.
For the, I guess, more active folks that might be visiting during that time, there is the Venice Marathon in Veneto. So that takes place on the 27th of October, and it's a huge attendance of runners that make it to the city. So if you want to get some exercise, or if you're into marathons, that's probably one of the things you might be interested in attending.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. I think there's like 5,000 people running in the event. And I'm just thinking how to navigate between all the, the bridges and all the streets. I think if you're not into running, I'll probably skip Venice. It's probably not, at least during that event, right? So this year is at the end of October. So if you are thinking of coming to Venice and you don't want to if you don't want to, be there when the marathon is happening, also keep that in mind. So either move your trip ahead or after. And then, if you're into the marathon, obviously go when the marathon is.
I think that'd be actually a pretty interesting run, considering, the venue, right? So, I'm not much of a runner myself, but if I was into marathon running, I definitely attend that.
Well, you can always start. I mean, it's Venice, so it's not like it's,
I'm good.
Yeah, you sure?
Yeah.
So again, one of the other events that you might want to consider, there's a big festival in Tuscany. It's called Sagra del Tordo, and it translates as Festival of the Thrush. And it's a very interesting festival because it has a lot of medieval reenactments. There is archery contest. There's parades in medieval costume. They have different feasts and a dinner and almost like cooking classes. So that's also a big event. And again, they have wine. So if you want to experience a bit of culture with your wine, that's always a good one too. This one is at the end of October 25th and 27th this year. If you're going to go to Tuscany, it's also a good one to check out. And it's in a town called Montalcino. I'll leave the link to the show notes so you can get that information there. Now, let's talk about where you should go in Italy in October. We touched on this a little bit, and it depends on what kind of experience you're looking for. I think October is a great time to visit cities. So Rome is always popular and busy in October. it's not going to be as hot. So you're not going to get that sweltering heat that's there in August or July. Is it going to be less busy? I don't think it's going to be that less busy, but it's not going to be as hot. If you're thinking about going to Rome, it's always a great time to visit museums. If you want to go to the Colosseum, it's a great time because it's not hot. So you're not going to be burning, standing in line. I think other cities are also great. I think if you're looking at outdoor experiences, I would probably look at those if you're going further south as opposed to going up north because it gets a bit colder.
If you're an outdoor person, October is probably the best time to be here. There's lots of great trails. Definitely plan it out beforehand. If you look it up, you'll see there's tons of trails. You can go biking, do walking tours, and hit some cooking classes and festivals along the way.
I think it's a really good plan. One of the things I was looking forward to our first fall here in Italy, I was looking forward to seeing what the foliage looks like. I wanted to see if it's going to be the same as it is in Canada when we have, these beautiful reds and oranges and yellows and the trees just look stunning. Where we are in Italy, we don't have that. If you're looking for that experience, you are probably better off going further north. So maybe from like Rome and up, as you probably get more of that variation. I don't think you're going to get too much if you go further down south because it's a different climate and the trees are different. In our area, the trees don't turn colors. They just kind of dry out and sometimes they fall off and just sometimes they stay on like really dry and kind of like a browny, orangey. They're not the same kind of vibrant colors that we have in Canada.
Yeah, you won't see the same beautiful fall colors you would see back home. I was never a fall or winter guy, so I'd rather make my way down south and hit a beach somewhere.
We've been to Amalfi Coast a few times now in October, even almost November. And there are some days that you'll still have people going in the water. It really depends on the day. If it's rainy, you're not going to go. But there are people still going in the water even now, and it's like October. So, as I said, Sicily, it's probably a better place to go if you still want to hit the beach because it's further south. You will be able to go to the beach without all the crowds. It won't be as hot as in the summertime, but it's still a nice experience.
So let's discuss some ideas for the listeners that might be visiting some of the more touristy places up north or even down south.
I think we should start with Tuscany. That's always a popular destination in Italy for everyone coming here. If you're looking for that whole rolling hills, beautiful vineyards, and that iconic Tuscan experience, fall is probably a better one than it would be in the summertime. You do get the foliage change, a bit more of the crispness in the morning, warmer weather, sunny days, even in the rain. We were in Florence, I think it was November or late October. It was raining and it was still such a beautiful day. Florence is such a beautiful city, even in the rain. And it wasn't hot. It wasn't, sunny, but it was still such a beautiful experience because Florence is just an amazing city. We went to Siena, we went to Lucca, I think. And, they're not as busy as they are in the summertime. And again, it's not as hot, so you get a better experience if you go to places like Tuscany, if you go for a road trip, or even if you're in Florence and you're going to the popular destinations like the Uffizi Gallery, which can get quite busy in the summertime. It's a better experience now because there are less people, and it's also not as hot.
I believe Florence is probably one of the most beautiful cities in Italy, and Tuscany in general is beautiful, especially if you plan on driving through it. There is quite a bit to do. My recommendation would be visiting a lot of the wineries and, doing a lot of the food tours would be on top of my list.
I agree. I think if you are coming to Florence, there's a lot of different day trips and tours you can do from Florence. If you want to stay there and make that your base, I think it's a beautiful time to check out the Chianti region. There are so many wineries in Tuscany. And if you're into wine, that's like a dream destination, isn't it?
It's definitely a destination for wine lovers. You've got the Chianti region, and of course, you want to have the wine while you're there. Sangiovese is the grape that they use for Chianti, but you could try lesser known wines that aren't as expensive.
So are Tuscan wines mostly red or do they have some white?
They're mostly red, but there are some whites that they do use or make. I think one of them might be the Sauvignon Blanc type wine.
So I guess the red is more of a dominant grape in that area.
There's also one that's very well known for the region. Trebbiano is also one of the white wines that's very popular.
Another destination I think we can talk about, which I don't think it's on many people's radar, is Piedmont. So Piedmont is where you have the White Truffle Festival, but Piedmont is also known for wine, right?
Yeah, the specialty, or what that region's very well known for, is the Nebbiolo grape. So you'll get that type of very high tannic wine. If you're interested in that type of wine, it's very good from what I've had. And I think one of the really popular areas is there's Moscato d'Asti. So that's that. I think they use that for the Dolcetto variety of wine.
Piedmont is also great if you are into like outdoor activities. When we talked about hiking and trails and biking, that's where Piedmont comes in. So you do have those beautiful rolling hills, the scenery, but you also have the backdrop of the Alps, which the Alps themselves are pretty impressive. So again, if you're looking for a combination of food experiences like food tours, cooking classes, or wine tours, and then you want to combine that with hiking and outdoor activities, I think Piedmont is a great destination.
So let's talk about the Campania region. That's very well known for the Amalfi Coast. Everybody knows the Amalfi Coast and the beautiful scenery there. We have Naples and tons of locations you can visit that have ancient Roman ruins.
I think a lot of people who come to Campania don't necessarily go further than Naples and the Amalfi Coast. And we did talk about this before on our Campania episode. We talk about what's there to see and what you can do in this area. So again, it's well known for the Roman ruins. You do have Paestum and Herculaneum, the towns buried by the volcano. You can also come to Paestum, about an hour from us. It's a bit further down the coast. They have ancient Greek temples there. They're very well preserved. And I was there last October, end of October, and it was still a beautiful day. It rained for like maybe 10 minutes, but there were almost no people there. So it was really incredible to see. I was in Pompeii last October, and again, it was busy, but it wasn't as busy. So if you're thinking of coming to this area, those are great places to check out. If you have a bit more time in Campania, we also recommend you visit Benevento. It's another town that it predates the Romans. So it's got a lot of history and it has a really cool Roman theater there as well. We've been a few times. And of course, there's other small towns and festivals and places you can visit during October that you might not necessarily think of Campania as a destination. And I think if you do, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, let's not forget about what the region is known for. Food. There's the traditional pizza that you'll find in Naples. And of course, there's tons of cool food tours. We've even attended one not too long ago. And there was some places that I hadn't even seen before. That, the street market where they had all the street food and the fish market and all the other farmer markets in the area. So that was actually really interesting.
If you're looking at coming to Naples and thinking, I'm just going to use it as a base to go to the Amalfi Coast, I think you're going to miss a great experience. If you're already coming to Campania and plan on staying around here, spend some time in Naples. There's lots of good stuff to see and do in Naples. Naples has underground tunnels, ancient Greek and Roman cisterns, tunnels that were built for the king. There's palaces, museums, of course, restaurants, pizza. We tried a different pizza place last week. We went to Naples and we tried a different one that we normally do. So I think we're going to try to expand our culinary experiences to trying new places. But it comes down to what do you prefer, right? There are certain places we prefer to go to than others. And I think, it's good to try different places. You should probably write a blog post about the best pizza places in Naples that we've been to.
There's tons of those, that's for sure.
So now that we are moving further down south, let's talk about Puglia. Puglia is a destination in Italy that's growing in popularity. It's more so as a summer destination rather than a fall destination.
It's not as well known as some of the other places that we spoke about. There's definitely not as many foreign tourists. There's tons of Italians that visit the region, especially during the summer. They all go down there to go to the various beaches that are super popular. But of course, have places like Alberobello, the beautiful Baroque city of Lecce. So that's some of the places that I really enjoyed going to.
I think Puglia is a great beach destination, and I think it's a lot busier during summer. You will find that now that kids have gone back to school, people have gone back to work, and it's not the season for the beach, you'll have a lot less people going to that area. So you'll find it a bit more quiet, but also warmer, right? I'm sure it will be warmer than it is further up north. And like you said, I love Lecce. Lecce is a beautiful city that I think it's been called like the Florence of the South, just to give you an idea of how beautiful it is. You can spend some time driving around, exploring the little towns and historical villages. There's just so much charm in Puglia that I think you will enjoy it. I don't think you'll get as much of the foliage in Puglia because I think the weather is not conducive to that. But Puglia is known for olive farms and olive groves. So you'll get a lot of olive trees and they don't lose leaves over the winter. So you'll have that sense of greenery still there even after the harvest.
Although we've already mentioned Sicily, I think we need to highlight the fact that there's so much to see. And of course, if you're a foodie, that's definitely one destination you'd want to stop at because you won't find better seafood or better food in general than anywhere else in Italy.
We did a road trip in Sicily in June. I think October is probably even a better time to go because you won't get that extreme heat, but you also get fewer crowds. I don't think there's as many people going to Sicily as they might be going to Rome or Tuscany, for example. So you will have a lot more opportunity to see the towns that usually are overrun with tourists, like Palermo, for example, or if you go further down south to Ragusa, Modica, and Noto, which are very well known for its Baroque beauty. So again, I think it's a great time to go to Sicily and visit the towns, but it's also a great time to do outdoor activities. There is Mount Etna. I personally wouldn't necessarily go too near it because I'm just paranoid about that. But, there's great hiking. There's great opportunities for outdoor sports. And if you want to hike to the volcano, you can do that as well. They have great activities around that area.
And even if you don't want to do too much there, just getting lost in the streets is a fantastic experience. I personally would do that if you want to relax and enjoy the sights.
Are you talking about Palermo or most cities in general?
Palermo, I loved the city itself. It's, so many beautiful structures, buildings, and of course I'd eat my way through it. So there's so many places you can stop by and have something to eat real quick, and the street food is out of this world. I know we ended up stopping at that one restaurant that had all the seafood on display outside, and you got to pick whatever you wanted and have them cook it for you. I think that's probably one of the best meals I've ever had.
You also said that about another town we went to in Sicily. So I think there's a common theme of best meals in Sicily.
It's one of the best meals I've ever had.
A lot of the places you talk about as great, you've had great meals. A lot of them are in Sicily, right? A lot of places we've been to that you really enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely.
When we went to Cefalù, I think we both were saying how we had one of the best meals ever. So again, Cefalù is another great place to check out when you are in Sicily. The food there is outstanding. It's not necessarily like, the beach, whatever. No, the food is outstanding and it's a cute little city. So if you're looking for that less touristy experience, I think Italy in October, especially in Sicily, is a very good choice.
Yeah, I agree.
So we talked about Rome a bit. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Rome because I think there's certain places that whether you're coming the first time or for the second time or your fifth, you're probably going to see. But if you're looking for a bit of a maybe different experience, I would encourage you to visit the parks. Rome has so many beautiful parks. If you go to, the Roman Forum, the Colosseum, they're great. They're obviously on your list. But if you've already been there and you're looking for something else to do, go explore some of the museums. There is the Villa Borghese Park, which is very beautiful. I love that park. Whenever we go, I try to go there because it's massive. It's got like a pond. It's got like this beautiful palazzo and there's a museum inside. And it's just a great place to hang out. There's also different parks in Rome and different places that just make Rome look really nice. Because again, Rome gets a bit of a different foliage than we have here. And it's really quite nice. Like for me, Rome, any time of year is beautiful. And I don't really think you can go wrong. But if you're looking for that quintessential must-see experience, it's probably better in October than in August.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've spoken about Rome a few times already, and you can't go wrong. I agree with the Villa Borghese gardens. I thought they were beautiful, and they're huge. So you can spend the whole day just walking around there.
We talked about the festivals, and maybe we could talk about the different foods that are coming in season. I noticed that after living in Italy for a while, there are certain foods that you don't get for certain times. In Canada, we're used to getting, like if you want kale, you'll go and you'll find kale. Here, remember I kept saying I want kale and I couldn't find any. And last weekend we were at the store and they finally had kale. A lot of the times in the grocery stores, they have seasonal things. Right now, it's, as we said, chestnuts, mushrooms, but it's also big for different kinds of pumpkins and squash. There's just so much of it. If you're looking for trying foods that are made with local ingredients, you'll find a lot more of a variety of those ingredients in your food. And yeah, there's so many different types of pumpkins. I think they call everything sort of pumpkin here. We live in a very fertile region, so sometimes I don't know if they're even pumpkin anymore. They're these long, sort of very heavy, I don't know, like squash of some kind. And they're massive. Like they are huge. They're almost like a size of a child, maybe like a 3-year-old. They're big and heavy and they come in season in the fall. You can actually see them in the grocery store.
Yeah, that's a huge thing with eating in season. I find that a lot of the times you won't find certain things at the grocery store. Many times even our family members will mention that's not in season. You can't find that. And we're so used to being able to find everything at any time back home. But here it's a little more difficult. And even when they do have things that aren't in season, a lot of times it doesn't taste the same. So we're getting used to eating stuff that's in season.
And if you go further up north, obviously you're going to get more mushroom dishes. So if you are into risotto, I think that's a great thing to try. Porcini mushrooms, they make a lot of different stews. I had them fried, like they bread them and fry them, or they add them to risottos, like I said. It's also time for games. If you're into boar or pheasant or venison, especially the further up north you go, you'll find dishes with that on the menu. If you want to try that, I think that's a great place to do that. I don't think I've seen those ingredients on the menus here too much. Maybe I've seen the boar a couple of times, but I don't think I've seen, you don't see it as much as you would see it up north.
It's more region specific. Further up north you go, the heavier the foods and the more emphasis on meats there are. So, we're more used to seeing seafood, but yeah, there is, you'll see dishes that have, wild boar, or you might see something like, pheasant and venison. But yeah, wild boar is probably fairly popular even in this region. But yeah, it's mostly some sort of green rapini or something like that in the dishes they use, or seafood.
One of my favorites is grapes and figs, which are coming in season now. A lot of times you'll find these guys that come with these big cases of grapes for making wine. I've always wondered what they taste like, whether the grapes actually taste okay, because it says grapes for wine and people just stop by and get a basket of these grapes. It's kind of interesting to see that, especially now when every weekend or every few days there'll be a guy with a truck selling grapes for wine making.
I think those grapes are a little different from what you would find at the grocery store. So they're really more meant for making wine. They'll most likely be a little less sweet.
Yeah, I think maybe we should look into that, because I don't know how many people make wine, but I'm curious to see what the process looks like. Because, back in Toronto, we could buy a kit. I wonder if they have those kits here too, or if it's more of like an old school kind of production. It'll be kind of interesting to see if we can find somebody who can tell us.
So what should we be packing when you come down in October in Italy? So you'll most likely have to bring a little bit heavier clothing, right? You'll find here it's much more milder. Sweaters, light jackets, of course, long pants. But yeah, you'll also find that it can get fairly warm certain days. So, just be prepared for that.
I would definitely recommend layers. It doesn't get too cold. I mean, for us, it doesn't get too cold. But when it's raining, you can feel the dampness. So I would recommend something waterproof, windproof, like a windbreaker, or, shoes that are water resistant, you probably be better off with that than bringing like more summer wardrobe. I think even if you're going down south, unless you're planning to go to the beach, I would skip bathing suits, open toe shoes and sandals and, stuff like that. It's just, you're not going to get much use of it. You probably want to bring an umbrella. I don't think you need scarf and gloves at this time. Although some Italians, when the temperature drops below a certain degree, they pull out winter jackets. It's interesting to see. But I think you'll be okay with a light jacket, a sweater. I'm still sticking with the layers.
Yeah, I guess it'll really depend on what activities you have planned, right? If you're planning on doing a lot of trekking trails or wine tours, maybe something a little heavier. But definitely if you're going to plan on hitting a beach or something like that and doing a lot of walking in the southern areas, then, of course you want to bring some lighter clothes.
Now, Italians, depends where you are, because sometimes I've seen people ask, how dressy should you be? I think it really, again, depends what your activities are. Not all Italians dress in designer clothes all the time, so you don't have to worry too much about sticking out. If you go out to dinner, like a special dinner back home and be dressed up, then bring that with you if you're planning a special dinner here. Otherwise, if you're going to be doing outdoor activities like trekking, wine tours, you don't necessarily need dressy clothes. So again, plan your wardrobe based on what you're planning on doing. And, you can also buy stuff here. It's a great excuse to buy a new wardrobe or new pieces for yourself and bring it back home. So if you are wondering if October is a good time to visit Italy, I hope this has answered some of your questions, because we really think it is a great time to visit. And I would even say going into November, it's a great time to visit Italy at any time of the year. And if you're looking for a bit of a different experience, seeing Italy a little bit differently, October is the time to do that. And this brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and review on whatever you're listening right now. We'll be back next week, so stay tuned.